Well, good morning and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Good morning from Abuja, the nation's capital. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Well, we know, Maokwe, you don't really have to rub it in. We know it's moved from Lagos. But it's here in Lagos that we have our guest this morning, Mr. Tooki, who is going to be going through the papers with us. He's editor of Business World. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
With us this morning.
Morning.
Well, let's begin with the one on the front page. Well, many people call it actually the business newspaper. The Guardian newspaper begins with this one. Why Nigeria can't produce COVID-19 vaccines now. It's not a quote. As you can see, very far, we don't have the investments. That one is in parentheses. It's a mirage to expect local vaccines now, says Akintayo. We're making tremendous progress, says Okapo. Well, that is what we have on the front page. I think I'm going to come back to this later. Well, incidentally, the Nigerian Tribune is interested in the same thing.
Yeah.
4 reasons COVID-19 is on the rise in Nigeria. That's the lead of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper this morning. January 18, school resumption to be shifted. Lagos workers to be in office twice monthly. Nigeria now Africa's second highest cases. Rapid diagnostic test kit to be rolled out in 5 Abuja hospitals, and over 60 railway workers infected so far. That's according to Rotimi Amechi, the Minister of Transportation. The story you'll find on pages 2 and 3 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper this morning. But how does this hit you?
Well, the fact that the country cannot produce the vaccine now is not a surprise. Because when you look at it, what are the enabling factors of production in the country at the moment? Also, when you look at it the other way around, how many pharmaceutical companies have made any breakthrough in the last few years? So the factors are not there. And I don't know. It's not that we don't have the manpower. Of course, we have the manpower. We have a lot of them even in the diaspora. We have a lot of Nigerians abroad who have even contributed to the success of the ones that we have at the moment.
We'll come back to that on the front page of The Guardian later, but the one that is really getting to me right now is this one on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, talking about the reasons why COVID-19 is on the rise. Of course, we've talked about super spreader, gatherings like what we have at NIMSI, centers all across the place. And you've been quite vocal about that one, by the way, where it would seem, as some people have alluded, that the federal government is saying one thing on the one side and saying another thing altogether on the other side. Don't gather, observe social distancing, wear your masks, non-pharmaceutical interventions and the rest of them. And we're having a situation where the federal government, the same federal government, is telling Nigerians to get their national identity numbers or risk losing their SIMs?
Honestly speaking, it is actually a very complex situation, especially in Nigeria, where people live on daily means. People have to struggle to get their means of livelihood, and so it's not. The situation is very alarming. That is quite sure. But another thing that government needs to take a look at is, if people stay at home, look at it now. Our children have been at home. School children have been at home for over 10 months now. What are we doing to that? And when you look at the peasant nature of Nigerians, it is quite difficult to control. Visit all the markets, you see people they are not using. I don't know whether it is education that is not enough or the proactiveness of the government is lacking. These are the things that is not about sitting in Abuja and crying about these things. It's about getting involved. It's about looking at strategies that we can adopt to ensure that people actually adhere to all the protocols, because it's getting very serious. This second wave is not even a thing we think we should joke with. It is getting serious, and you hear deaths here and there. Look at it now. Nigeria is the second in terms of new cases. Yeah. Nigeria now ranked the second in Africa. So that is suggesting that the situation is getting very, very alarming. And the earlier this issue is addressed, the better for all of us. Otherwise, the signals are very, 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 very dangerous and very, very alarming.
I'm pretty sure we'll still be talking about this a lot, you know, in the course of this conversation, because is there anything left for government to do that has not been done? But then let's leave the Nigerian Tribune there this morning. Markwe.
I saw you trying to put two papers together this morning. So let's quickly look. Vanguard and Daily Trust, they seem to have a similar theme as well. COVID-19, federal government may suspend NIN registration. That's according to it just says minister. But we do know that the Minister of State for Health was on Sunrise Daily yesterday morning, and he did say that they may, it was a very big may, suspending in registration considering what was going on. But he clarified later on in the PTF briefing that it's only the president that has the powers to order such a suspension if there'll be one. So no one should take him out of context. So the Vanguard is reporting that on the front page this morning, COVID-19, federal government may suspend NIN registration. And then you also look at what is happening on the front page of Daily Trust this morning. It says, as Nigeria's COVID-19 cases hit 100,000 plus, we're running out of treatment facilities. Federal government cries out, says health workers may be forced to take tough decisions. Mulls another lockdown, reviewing January 18 school resumption date to release rapid test kits in Abuja. So that is also there. The writers on the front page of the Vanguard says, declares no state immune, set to roll out rapid test kits in Abuja. NIMSI staff threatened to down tools again, issue 21-day ultimatum. What are your thoughts seeing this story? Federal government may suspend NIN registration, and we're running out of treatment facilities. Federal government cries out. Is it a viable option when we look at the fact that, yes, indeed, COVID-19 is spreading at an alarming rate, and it looks like, please don't quote me, that we have a different strain of the virus right now in this second wave. And, the fact that we also have security issues which are on the front burner. How do you think we should marry these paradoxes facing Nigerians at the moment?
Honestly speaking, Marco, if you ask me, I actually wonder why and how we get into this situation. Look, just like I mentioned before, this is the age of technology. Nothing says that this registration shouldn't have been moved, by technology. People sitting in the comfort of their homes, using their phones to register. What does it take, for God's sake?
Capture biometrics.
Biometric, if it is only biometric, 2 minutes per person, you are done. Do you understand? If you are coming to the office only to do biometrics, it becomes very simple. It's just to enter, do your fingerprint, and go. Other than having to sit down, asking, what's your name, what's your surname? All those, at this age of technology, they are not necessary. So we can actually blame the government for this, for the situation we are right now. Because, look at it. How many of, this virus, how many people have gotten infected via this NIN registration? It's quite unserious. When I look at these things, I get very angry. That why people, this age of why should people go to offices and be queuing up to register? And when you want to register, it takes an average of 30 to 40 minutes per an individual. So how do you manage that?
Is
You
it
see
too-
people
is it too-
climbing the fence.
Is
you
it
know?
too late for us, or too early for us, or too expensive for us to consider eye scanners? Talking about technology, because some people have also said that maybe eye scanners would have helped, so people don't even have to have any physical contact with NIMS.
Well, your guess is as good as mine. You now begin to think whether there are people are no longer thinking in government. There are so many avenues. There are so many ways by which this issue can be addressed. But it seems that everybody has gone to sleep, and we have to be very careful. Honestly speaking, I'm very emotional about this, but we have to be very careful. All the necessary agencies that are in charge of this, they have to wake up from their slumber and do something urgently. As a matter of fact, nothing says that I'm actually in favor, support of this suspension because it is getting irritating. Even when people are looking at us from other parts of the world, we become a laughing stock. How can people be coming in their thousands, in their hundreds, to NIMS's offices for registration?
You've not spoken to that other part on the front page of the Daily Trust that talks about we're running out of treatment facilities.
Look, when you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That is exactly what is happening here.
What do you mean? It's not that we saw COVID-19 coming. We're 200 million.
This is second wave, Ayo. We didn't see it coming. We went through the first wave. How many months? And this is the second wave. And you say we have not seen. And that means you are not, the vision is not there. This is second wave, and this second wave is even running riot. Is even getting more serious than what we had before. So for a serious government to now say we are running out of treatment facilities, does it look well? Does it bode well for anyone to even begin to think of? That is not unacceptable. That is unacceptable.
Markwe?
Well, I'm a little spoiled for choice now. Perhaps we should just stay with the Daily Trust and see if we can focus a little more on some of the stories there. We're deploying you all to Sambisa Forest, Buratai tells recruits. It's on the front page as well. Some people have said, well, maybe that's not the wisest place to send them to first. You need experienced hands fighting such a war, not people who are just fresh out of school. Or do you think that their zeal and their zest is what we need right now to perhaps motivate the forces on the ground? What are your thoughts on a statement credited to the Chief of Army Staff, General Buratai?
Well, deploying recruits to Sambisa Forest, it sounds very funny to me. Very, very funny. Where you are now, what do you say?
They have been trained.
Well, let's see how it goes. If that is their new strategy, those who have been there for years, those who have had the necessary experience, they are not sending them there. They are sending recruits. Let's see what the result will be. But I doubt if this will actually bring any serious result. I doubt. If they are not risking the life of these people, of course, we don't know the extent to which they have been trained. If they have been well trained and they are capable of handling this, why not? Because their work is to fight. Their profession is to fight. If they can go there and fight and win the war, then good. But I have my doubts. I have my doubts.
Well, let's look at more stories on the front page of the Vanguard. Looking at this one, why we chose Obiozo, that's Ohanese President General, according to Igbo leaders. Yesterday, there was a story that there was some rancor among some leaders in the Southeast over the emergence of Ambassador Obiozo as Ohanese President General. But there seems to be some justification this morning by some, or maybe it just says Igbo leaders, doesn't say some. So you might want to look at page 13 for that. But then this story broke yesterday as well. Forces plotting to unleash religious violence in Nigeria. I'll leave Ayo to do that in subsequent papers. Look at this one. Nigeria lost 5.4 trillion naira to tax evasion by multinationals. That's according to FRS boss. What are your thoughts on that? Tax evasion is not allowed, is actually punishable. Tax avoidance is allowed. But when we see this sort of statement by the FIRS, what should we be asking of them?
Well, I am actually surprised if multinationals can evade tax. But that is one way of looking at it. Anybody can evade tax, but as a responsible corporate citizens, I don't expect multinationals to fall into this kind of category. But even if at all there is something like this happening, how is government handling it? Okay? Even there are certain things that will have led to the evasion of tax by multinationals, not even individual this time around, by multinationals. So, well, I think government need to sit up to ensure that this kind of thing
I'm wondering how that is
because
possible.
Because honestly,
let me just identify something. The headline that Malcolm read says Nigeria lost. In other words,
it may have gone.
It's gone. That's unless there is more in the story on page 15 that we're not seeing. Nigeria lost 5.4 trillion naira to tax evasion by multinationals, and it is coming from the chief tax officer of the country. I'm wondering, one, how that is possible, and then do we just throw our hands up and say, okay, continue the evasion?
No, it's a failure of government if multinationals are evading tax, It shows the lack of seriousness on the part of those who are supposed to be in charge of this. It also means that some people are not doing what they're supposed to do. And I've mentioned it here before, are people even being given targets in this government? If there are targets to be met, people will put on their thinking cap to be able to meet those targets. Everybody is just doing what they like. It has become a free-for-all thing, especially in this government, and it is quite worrisome. So those agencies responsible for this should be held responsible for this, because it's a colossal amount of money.
Absolutely.
5.4 trillion. That is unheard of.
Let me not even try to begin to conjure the figures in my head. Daily Independent is the one we should look at next. Now, experts, let's talking about coronavirus second wave. Experts warn against lockdown despite rising infections. Who are the experts warning against this? You may want to find out. The story continues on page 5 from the front page. FG regrets lifting international travels ban and reopening of schools. Alerts virus is spreading fast with mild symptoms. May review January 18 resumption date for schools. Hints on suspending NIN registration. Well, it's all a lot in one headline or a series of sub-headlines you want to pick up. Of course, we've spoken quite extensively on that as well. Right under the picture you see there, 2023, why APC should nominate Southerner as presidential candidate. That's coming from Sage, wants party to honor informal zoning agreement in 2023. Stories on page 29. What do you make of this? Does it matter?
Well, Nigeria is a very complex state, and we have learned of this gentlemanly agreement that the power should shift from one section of the country to another. And if you look at it very well, I think it is only a reasonable thing to do, because this can give a kind of political stability that we want in Nigeria. If a particular section of the country insists on producing the president, it may not bode well for the unity of this country. I think it is only reasonable that this kind of thing should be upheld.
Markwe.
Let's look at leadership quickly. You see there, DSS uncovers plots to incite religious violence is on their front page. We will tackle any form of unrest, insecurity, governors vow. Experts pick holes in security vote spending. 21,296 suspected criminals arrested in 2020, that's according to the police. What do you make of that particular story? DSS uncovers plot to incite religious violence. Some people think it's alarmist. Do you think so too?
Yeah. Not exactly. It's good that DSS has uncovered this. What of if they are not even uncover any of this plot and it happened? But now that this plot is uncovered, what is paramount now is how to guide against it actually happening. You know, what are the things in place to ensure that this doesn't happen? I think that should be the main thing now that should preoccupy the DSS. Uncovering is good because some of the calamities we have had around the country may not have happened if those responsible have been well ahead of the game. But now that the thing is uncovered, the next stage is how to prevent it from actually happening. I think that is what DSS should be working on now.
Looking at this one too, the picture tells a whole load of story. Look at this one. Borno State Governor Professor Babagana Zulum taking down details of one of the 1,163 IDPs children he personally enrolled in schools at Damasak in Borno State yesterday. It's definitely one way of turning the tide against a sect that has said, you know, no education. And I think that is extremely significant. But beyond that, you know, safety is a priority. Safety and security of the children are a priority. Do you think that we can guarantee any of such things in the middle of a pandemic and in a place like Borno?
Of course, yes. Why is very, very important. As a matter of fact, I also expect this safety of a thing as far as COVID-19 is concerned. I also expect the government to take it further. You know, because of the peculiarity of this country, government should also have thought of, you know, going into public places, distribute face masks, you know, educate people on why they should use face masks, go to marketplaces, you know, apart from the one we just mentioned, go to very many other public spaces and distribute face masks free of charge and ensure that people use it. Because honestly speaking, I don't think Nigeria can survive a second lockdown. I don't think so.
Well, it's a similar story on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct this morning. DSS uncovers plots to incite religious violence in Lagos, Kano, Rivers, and others. That's the lead of the Nigerian News Direct. You spoke about to that earlier. And the Daily Times newspaper is also talking about stakeholders chart path to Nigeria's survival. And of course, all other stories are there. The Ohaneze Ndigbo story, the DSS uncovering religious incitement of religious violence, and the editorial, out-of-school children in Nigeria. Perhaps that's what Marco was actually, you know, leading towards on that picture story on the front page of the Leadership newspaper this morning. The editorial of the Daily Times is on out-of-school children in Nigeria. Definitely something of concern.
Yeah, of course, yes. It should be everybody's concern. As a matter of fact, the last time I read about the numbers involved in the out-of-school children is quite alarming, alarming. And I also studied this year's, 2021 budget. I think education is about number 3 or so. I stand to be corrected. I think it's an area that should concern every responsible government. It's getting out of hand, and there should be deliberate educational policy to address this. because education is actually very key.
Perhaps
Look at parts of the world that are doing well now.
Yeah.
It's because of education.
Well,
look
there
at
was
India,
something
for
you
instance.
mentioned earlier that I think would probably speak to this further. So it's one thing to get education. It's another thing for that education to be targeted at something, because that's what you're referencing with India, that's what you're referencing with China and the rest of it. But we have to thank you very much this morning. We're out of time. Abimbola Tooki is editor of Business World. Thank you so much for your time and thoughts this morning.
It's my pleasure.
We're back to take on the issues for the day. Just stay with us.